I just don't want you to see my messy classroom.
Oh, you're still at work?
Oh, we've got parent-teacher conferences, so yeah.
Oh,
Oh, I don't hardly go to any of them, but you know, you have to be present in case.
well, tell me about that.
Well, I'm as a resource teacher, I kind of play a cursory role in parent-teacher conferences because they want to talk about the gen ed stuff, the general education curriculum, and how they work in the regular classroom. But oftentimes, parents who have students with special needs, specifically behavioral issues, like to get my input on things. And sometimes I can give insight to the teachers about their accommodations and the modifications that are in the IEP, the individual education plan. And sometimes I can give insights into the parents that this behavior or that behavior is behavior. It's not about the disability. The kid's just kind of being 13 and disruptive because he's 13 and that's what they do.
Yes,
And
they
so,
do.
yes, and it's not healthy for any child, for any person to say, oh, I have a disability, I'm allowed to do whatever I want. You're not. You know, you can say, I have ADHD, that means I need to move around a little bit more. You make accommodations for that, let the kids stand in the back of the room, let them run to get to the office, to get water, to sometimes they come to my room, we set a 5-minute timer, chill, gather yourself, go back to class. And sometimes you got to tell the kid, you're not allowed to throw paper across the room because that would be funny because you're in school.
Yes. Yes, it's kind of nice to hear you say that. And because I do know that I have worked with special ed teachers that I felt they tried to modify my assignments too much, or but how do you handle teachers like me who constantly question everything? Like, I don't understand why you need that modification. How do you handle teachers
Conversation,
like me?
conversation, collaboration, consultations. You sit down and you talk with them. You say, okay, what is this kid doing in class? What is he able to do? What have you seen him do? Because sometimes we do underestimate our students. Sometimes we look at what they've been doing and think that's what they can do, where the gen ed teachers see that they can do a whole lot more. I have seen that. So I keep an open mind and I'll sit down and I'll talk with you. And then I'll say, you are wanting him to do a 3-page essay on this, but in his IEP, I am working really hard to get a 3-paragraph essay out of it. So that's why we need to come to, you know, a middle ground somewhere. You know, if he is struggling to do 1 or 2 paragraphs, writing a 5-paragraph essay isn't realistic in my world. But we could find a way to maybe give him some graphic organizers, help him to create 1 paragraph at a time and then fit it all together. It will take a lot longer, but he could get the assignment done. And that's what we're always striving for, is to be able to do what needs to be done in the general education classroom, but understanding that the struggles are different and the struggles are real, but it doesn't mean that you have to succumb to them. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Now, you said if it's in his IEP, isn't that a legal document? I mean, I've always thought if it's in the IEP, I can't question that. That is a legal document. And if I don't follow what the IEP, like if the IEP says a 3-paragraph essay and not a 5-paragraph essay, I can't do anything about that.
Right. You can't. But I, as the one who authors the IEP, with the IEP team, but I'm the one that puts it on pay. I type it in. So if you tell me that he can do more than what I'm expecting, then I will take that into consideration. I'll do some baselines. I'll check it out. It's like, well, let's test that water. Let's see if we can get it more. And I have a 3-paragraph essay. You are wanting a 5-paragraph essay. Let's say he does two 2-paragraph essays and then a 1-paragraph essay, and then you put them together. So you break it down into bite-sized chunks. It's what he can handle, but it also gets the job done.
That's fair. That's fair. And I love chunking stuff. I chunk stuff all the time. Chunk it all the time.
It's not just for school anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So what's it like teaching in Arizona after teaching in Massachusetts? It's a significantly different state, Massachusetts to Arizona. I know that you were a contracted sped teacher.
Mhm.
Until you got that job, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't have a clue, but that makes sense because there's such a need for sped teachers, and like there's a need for nurses. And so contracted nurses are traveling nurses are big things. And I guess traveling sped teachers are a thing as well. So
Yeah.
tell me the difference between Massachusetts and Arizona, the teaching.
Oh, night and day. Not to be mean about Arizona, but Massachusetts has a completely different take on special education. It goes back to the Kennedys and their sister, Eunice. Rose, yes. Rose had special needs. She had a brain disorder, TBI.
They gave her a lobotomy.
Well, there's that. That'll do it. I'll do it every time.
Well, I mean, she had special needs. They thought the lobotomy would fix it.
Yeah,
they were wrong, but so anyway, sorry, didn't mean to go off on that tangent.
But what they did do, besides starting the Special Olympics, which is amazing, and we love that, they also created laws in Massachusetts that said that each individual public school district will provide special needs instruction as needed. Most states say as available. And that one word change, that one word difference is a world of difference. If you have a student that comes into your public school and she's deaf, you will provide training in ASL, American Sign Language. You will have an interpreter. You will, because as needed, that's the way it is. In Arizona, not so much. Arizona, it's, well, we'll give you what we got, and we'll see what we can do. And it depends on the districts, and it depends on how bad and how hard the parents push. A lot of our parents are from Mexico, and Mexico doesn't even do special education at all. No. So they're all kinds of excited that you let their kid come to school, you know? So they don't think about, well, my kid needs X, Y, Z, and you're only giving him X. But you know, you're giving him X, so I'm happy. But in Massachusetts, man, when I came to Arizona, my first classroom was a self-contained classroom. In Arizona, we called them substantially separate classrooms. In Arizona, the language is even and the power behind that language is blah. But here it is self-contained. Whoa. Massachusetts Massachusetts was substantially separate. Arizona is self-contained. So
Yeah,
when you're
that's significantly different.
right, I thought, what? So, and then the thought process that goes with that, it's obvious, at least it is to me, that these guys are substantially separated from the, but they're still a part of the school. Self-contained. It's like, you guys are over there, we are over here, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. And I'm like, I don't like that at all.
It's
But
not
then-
how you were raised.
No, I was and am a big inclusion person. I believe that people need to be in our society. If you're in our society, then you're in our society. You don't put baby in a corner.
Okay, so that was a reference to a Dirty Dancing movie back from the 80s, and you're
Yeah.
just old.
Yeah, well, you're I'm the little sister. So
I know, I'll always be older.
I still butt heads pretty significantly with people like the school psychologists and things that don't think I need to know that my child, I am the case manager. I have a student on my caseload that has behavioral issues and goals that go along with those issues, and that's his issue. It's his thing. That's why he's in my room. He has behavioral problems, right? The kid gets suspended for fighting. Nobody tells me. I don't need to know the details, except that I have to do the behavior plan and address the correction of the behavior, but I don't know what he actually did. Not helpful.
Yeah. That kind of communication is, I think that kind of communication is sorely we really walk a tightrope, even in a reg ed class like mine. We really walk a tightrope between what we probably should know and what we legally can know.
Yeah.
And I do have teachers in my school who know everything because they ask the kids, and the kids, they tell.
Of course.
I don't necessarily want to know. Yeah, I'm not writing an IEP. I don't. I want to know. I want to know if I know the stuff that's big. Like, I had a student who over quarantine, and I'm not alone. A lot of kids committed suicide over quarantine because it was bad. It was bad for kids. And his sister was acting out, and she got herself suspended. Well, I understood why, but our new administrator didn't have a clue. They didn't know this family dynamic because, tightrope, what you know, what you need to know, legal. Right. And so I casually mentioned it, and they're like, oh,
wish I would have known that.
Man, I wish I would have known that. Yeah, because I mean, it's not gossip.
If you need to know.
Gossip when you're using that information to do what's best for the kids. But yeah, it's so frustrating.
And there has to be policy. There has to be a standard operating procedure about what you do and why you do it, and who you tell and who you don't tell, and the reasons for it. Because frankly, most of the districts, and as a contractor, I worked for a lot of districts. The districts do it by feel, which is rarely worked. Oh, I felt like I needed to tell this person, or I just mentioned it to her because she needed. But oh, I didn't feel like you needed. I don't care what you feel. This needs to be.
I say that all the time.
You feel. This is factual. I need to keep data on this child's behavior. That's my job. I am required through the IEP by law to keep data on this behavior, and you're preventing me from collecting my data. I'm not being nosy, and I'm not trying to butt in where I don't belong.
There needs to be more of a I don't know, a united front,
Yes,
I think.
teamwork. There
Yeah.
has to be some teamwork. There has to be, like I said, that collaboration, that consultation, that let's talk together and respect each other's roles and understand that we all have a part to play in this, because we do. The kids do. The kids need for us. It's like you can't play mom versus dad. You can't go run into grandma because mom said you can't have any more cookies. That's it. We have to have that team effort. This is what we're doing with this kid and for this kid. And when you have high maintenance kids, like students that end up in resource, you gotta have communication with administration and with, the whole team has to know who you are and what you're doing. Because otherwise the kids are gonna play off each other. And he'll tell the social studies teacher, I don't need to do your work because I'm doing resource, and I'm like, yeah, you do.
Yeah. My greatest tool in motivating kids that have shut down and
Mhm.
don't want to do anything has been parents.
Mhm.
All I have to do is email a parent or call a parent. It is very, very rare for me to email a parent and nothing happen. It happens. Don't get me wrong, but it is rare. It is rare. Now, if I contact them too much,
They stop taking your call.
yeah, I'm just
That's every-
obviously she can't do her obviously she can't do her job, and what she but like at the beginning of the year I had some 17-year-old knuckleheads who thought they were 13 and they
Oof.
were playing slap fight in my room.
Brilliant. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was before class started, and I got them settled down and made them quit. And they're good-hearted kids. They weren't being malicious. They were just being silly, you know.
Mhm.
And
But they're 17 and they're huge and they're gonna break stuff like
that's right.
each other.
That's right. That's right. And so they would, after I got them settled down and we got to working and we got to doing, then when the time for them to independently work came around, they decided they were going to take turns having an excuse to walk past each other so they could slap each other again.
Sure, why not?
Sure,
Mhm.
why not? So I emailed moms, both of their parents,
Uh-huh.
and I said, please talk to your son about this situation because it's such a stupid reason to have to go to the office and get a detention. I mean,
Mhm. Or the emergency room to get stitches.
well, I didn't go talk about going to extremes. I mean, come on. These are the same kids who probably hooked up the hood of a car to the back of a four-wheeler in the winter and drove each other around in the snow.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to the hospital because of a slap fight. They're
Yeah.
going because they flew off the hood of a car
of
they
a big
jerry
event.
rigged to the back of a truck.
No, we would never do that sort of thing. Do that
Oh
sort
yeah,
of
that's
thing.
these guys. They're fun. But yeah, but boy, the next day, straight as a needle.
Mhm.
Walked in and they were sitting there, like the 1950s children with their hands on their desks.
Good morning, Mrs. Ross.
That was it too. It was crazy. I didn't ask any questions. And pretty soon one of them looked at me and he goes, you know, you got me grounded. I said, I got you grounded,
You got
bucko.
you.
Oh, and they just need to know that my goal is not for them to get in trouble. And their parents and I
Mhm.
have this united front. And our
Mhm.
fight, our battle is to get you educated.
Yes.
And we have to win, because
Mhm.
if we don't win, you don't graduate.
And that is what I'm trying to get across to my middle schoolers,
Yep.
because I've got 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I tell them, I'm getting you ready for high school. When you get into high school, they're not going to put up with this. They're not going to put up with that. When you get into high school, they're not going to try to teach you how to write your D's and your B's. They're not going to teach you adding and subtracting. They're going to toss a calculator at you. They're going to give you a typewriter, or there I go.
Matt, you're old again.
Toss you an iPad or a Chromebook and say, just type it. And if you want to have decent handwriting, you're going to get it from me, or you're not going to get it at all, because that's where you're at.
Parents know their kids. They know their kids. They know their limits. They know they could be delusional, but down deep inside, back there in the back of their brain, they know their kids.
Yeah.
They know their kids.
Yeah. And especially post-COVID, they know their kids because they had to live with them.
Yep. Yep.
I had a girl, not even one of mine. It was a gen ed kid that I used to deal with on the playground. And I used to have to deal with her dad constantly, because I'd have to write her up because she wouldn't get into the line. She would hold up the recess. She wouldn't stop TikTok dancing, whatever. So, I ended up having to call the dad a couple of times. And I'm like, I need 10 seconds of silence so I can move the line. That's the rule. Just shut up for 10 seconds. Count to 10 in your head. That's all you got to do. Just be quiet. You got to have lunch. This girl. Anyway, the dad would get frustrated. It's like, she's fine. Why don't you just let her eat lunch? Why hasn't she? I'm like, but we did COVID, right? And we were handing out those paper packets at the very beginning, remember?
Yes.
That first paper packet that he came and picked up, I handed it to him, like, hey, how you doing? Here's your pack. And I said, how's she doing? Looking at that, he goes, she will not shut up. I said, I know. I love those. Man, I'll tell you what, COVID, to be able to speak on it, to be able to say I taught during COVID, this is what my experience was as a teacher, that's going to be where were you on 9/11?
I agree.
It as a veteran teacher, saying this is what it was before, this is what it was during, this is what it was after. It's that experience is going to be invaluable as an instructor of teachers, as a mentor, to be able to give that to the next generation, the lessons that we've learned. We've got to capture those. We've got to capture those. We can't let we can't let any of that happen again without full knowledge of the way it actually went. And we can't delude ourselves into thinking that it was a wonderful thing and it went great, because it didn't.